Okay. So what is your full name?
Married name?
Both.
Lena Cecilia King.
Yes.
Now, and I was Lena Cecilia Thibodeau
Okay.
when I was a child growing up.
Right. And where were you born?
Back here, back in the settlement.
What do you call it?
It's still Dowsettville.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. And what year was that?
1930.
All right.
Yeah.
And how large a family did you come from?
5
kids.
5 children. There was 3 girls. No, 2. Yeah, 3 girls and 2 boys.
All right. And where were you in that lineup?
I was 1, 2, 3, 4th.
The fourth.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was your father's name?
John Thibodeau.
Okay. And your mom's name?
Lillian.
Lillian?
Amiro, she was.
Amiro. And how did she spell Amiro?
Amiro.
Okay. Yeah. And do you remember what your grandparents' names were on your father's side?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ambrose Thibodeau and Rose Jedry. She had been a Rose Jedry.
How would you spell Jedry?
Jeddrey.
Okay. Where was she from?
She was from St. Alphonse,
Oh.
this side of Yarmouth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on your mother's side, what were your grandparents' names?
Eliza Amiro and Frank Amiro. They were both Amiros, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I've run into that a lot. You know,
Yeah.
people were far enough away.
I just realized that now when I said it. Yeah.
I interviewed Vincent Robichaud down in Gilbert's Cove.
He's my first cousin.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we had a great talk.
I bet.
Yeah.
He's funny.
Yes.
He
and,
is.
Really interested in history and tell me all about the oxen and the horses.
Yeah.
Yeah. He loved his animals.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what did your father do for a living?
He was a woodsman.
What's he? Okay. Now, how would that work? Did he cut wood on his own land?
He did, yes. He had his own land, but he also worked for others.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would happen to the wood that he cut? Who would he sell it to?
Oh, gosh, I don't know who he'd sell it to.
Yeah. Would it go as far as the mills in Weymouth, do you think? Or?
I imagine it must have went to mills. I can't remember that really.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But I remember him cutting wood and it was being sold. Probably, remember the name Adelar?
I don't, but we can look it up.
Yeah, Adelar, but that's all I know.
Okay.
I think he bought wood, but what they did with it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Must have went to mills eventually.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Did your father have animals to work with?
Yes, when we were kids growing up, he had a pair of oxen and a couple of cows and a few hens, and that's about it, I guess, and a pig.
Okay. Yeah.
Always raised a pig, yeah.
Right. Can I turn that little VHS? I'll do it because you're hooked. You don't mind if I turn that off?
No.
Okay.
There's two of them there. There's that one.
Right.
Then there's the other one down on the counter.
Okay.
That's probably the one there. There.
Okay. The mics will pick that up. So what do you remember then about your mother's work day?
Oh my. She worked hard.
Yeah.
Because there was no convenience when I grew up. There was no electricity. So she had to do everything, like she churned the butter, we had our own butter, and everything had to be carried down the basement, like the butter or the milk, and because there was no fridge. And she washed clothes by hand on the scrub board. I can remember that plainly. And she worked in the garden, she worked in the hay field, they mowed their own hay. It was tough, really.
Yeah.
But they seemed to enjoy it and they never complained. That's what I find strange today, because so many of us complain today, we have everything to work with.
Yeah.
But they never did.
No.
Yeah.
How much land did your parents own?
Oh gosh, I wouldn't know for sure. Quite a bit. Because they had their house in the field. Then he had different pieces of woodland, like 50 acres here and 100 acres there. That I really wouldn't know how much he had.
But a lot.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the house that you grew up in, did your parents buy that house, or did they inherit it? Or?
No, it was my grandmother's house. My mother took care of her mother, and she got the home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't hear too much of that
No.
so much today, no.
Yeah. So as a little girl growing up, fourth in the family, what were some of your chores?
Oh, feeding the pig and gathering the eggs,
Yeah.
helping in the house, like
Yeah.
washing dishes, making beds,
Yeah.
sweeping. Everybody helped.
Yeah.
We had apple trees in the fall of the year. We'd pick apples and get the vegetables out the garden ready for winter to put down cellar and
Right.
things like that.
How much of any of that produce or eggs or butter did you sell? Did your family sell?
Not too much,
No.
no. It was mostly for the family,
Okay.
yeah. And they might trade with the neighbors, like if we had no milk at the time, but we had eggs, we might trade.
Right.
You know, nothing was sold that much at that time
No.
because they only had enough, you know, for the family.
Yeah.
They didn't have any large amount of animals or anything like that. It was just for the family.
Yeah. Subsistence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember? Some people have told me that they would trade their vegetables with the fish from the.
Yes, they've done that. Like the
Yeah.
fishermen from Digby Neck would come, and they'd probably want a 50-pound bag of potato, and they'd give you dry fish or whatever, like, you know, you
Yeah.
trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Do you remember if it would be the same guys coming each year with the
Oh
fish?
gosh, I don't know.
No.
I don't think it would have been.
No.
I don't remember, but I remember fishermen coming and they'd trade vegetables for fish.
And where did you go to school, Lena?
It was back in Dowsonville too, but the school is not there now.
Gotcha.
There's a house there. It's just a little country school.
What did it look like?
Just a little building
Yeah.
with windows on one side. There was windows on the back and around one side. The other side had no windows.
Right.
And they had a pot-bellied stove in the middle of the floor for heat in the winter. And there was grades, primary to about grade 9 or 10, and one school teacher.
All in one room.
Yeah, just one room.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
And how would you get to school?
walking.
Yeah.
We always walked.
How far a trip was
Oh, it must have been a mile, a little over a mile to walk from
Yeah.
to school, morning and night. And in the spring of the year when it got warm, we'd walk home for our lunch.
that? Would you?
Yeah, because you had an hour off, so you'd walk home, get your lunch, and go back to school. Yeah.
Can you remember a special teacher at all?
Yes, there's one. She's still living back here in Dowsonville. She was from Cape St. Mary.
Yes.
And she came up here and taught school, and she married a guy from Dowsonville.
Right.
And she's living back here. She's in her 80s today, 81, 82, I think.
What's her name?
Dowsett. She was a Dowsett.
She's a Dowsett.
Yeah, she was a Dowsett,
Right.
married a Tebow.
Right. Okay.
And she was a beautiful teacher.
Yeah.
She very smart.
Ah,
And I think 4 years she taught me.
right.
Yeah,
So how far did you go in school?
grade 7.
Okay. And why did you leave school in grade 7?
Well, I was, I think 14 at the time, and I had bad nerves.
Mm-hmm.
My stomach would bother me, and my mother decided I'd better stay home.
Aha.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Oh, it didn't bother me. I was glad.
Yeah. Is that
At that time,
Yeah.
the kids, they didn't care. It's not like today. They didn't get an education, especially back in the countries like this.
Yeah.
You know, by the time they were 13, 14, 15, most of them would quit school anyway.
Aha.
So it was a trend, like.
Was it different for boys than girls? In terms
No,
of-
it's about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. The boys would quit and go work in the woods with their fathers or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a young girl, do you remember what you expected to do when you grew up?
I think we just thought we'd go out and do housework and eventually get married and raise our own families. Yeah. I think I went as a waitress before I got married
Where was that?
in Digby.
Where in Digby?
At the Cornwall, well, it was the Cornwallis Cafe. It's not called that now. It was called that Chinese restaurant downtown.
Okay. Right down on the main street?
Yes.
Yeah. Was it Wong or something?
Wong, yeah, Warren Wong had it then, but they've changed the name. They've refinished it and changed the name, but it was a Chinese restaurant. And I had worked at the Scotia restaurant, which was a restaurant and hotel both.
Right.
Up by the train station. I don't know if you...
I don't remember that.
No.
No?
I had worked there a while.
Yeah.
Then I got married, met a guy, got married, and raised 6 children.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Now, how old were you when you started waitressing, when you went to Digby?
About 15.
Really? Yeah. Would you have come home every night?
Oh, no.
No.
No, there was, gosh, didn't get home hardly at all because there was no way of getting home.
Yeah.
There wasn't the cars that there is today.
No.
So, no, we had a room. We'd get a room and we'd get our board at the restaurant, like,
Yeah.
eat at the restaurant and just get a room.
Yeah. Can you remember what your wage would have been?
I remember it all too well.
Yeah.
$11.34 a week we cleared. Can you imagine?
No. 34 cents.
Yeah, I don't know why the 34 cents,
Yeah.
but that was put in there too. Yeah, you didn't get very much, but then things were cheaper too in those days, like,
Yeah.
so.
How much of what you made would you have brought back to your family or sent home or any?
Not too much,
No.
because we had to pay for our room. Our room was, I think, if I remember right, it's either $2 or $3 a week.
Yeah.
We paid for our room, so that didn't leave us too much for ourselves, like for dressing ourselves. But whenever we could, buy a little gift or something, send home to mom, like,
When did electricity come to Dowseville?
It was right after I went out to work.
Right.
So I was born in 1930. Must have been right after the war,
Yes.
1945,
Okay.
46, something like that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, we didn't have electricity when I went to work.
No.
I remember that, but I remember coming home and having the lights in the house and how nice it was, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you went off to work, it would have been right in the middle of World War II, I suppose. or
It
just
was
at the
in
end.
45, I was just getting over,
Okay.
really. I went to work in 45, yes, and the war was over. And I remember, because there was the base, Cornwallis was so full of Navy.
Yes.
And I remember them parading down through town to go on the Princess of Helene, then, Princess
Yes.
Helene. They were on their way home, like,
Uh-huh.
I can remember that. Because the Cornwallis was full of Navy.
Uh-huh.
And when they'd come to town on Saturday night, you wouldn't notice the civilians because there was so much Navy. That's all you'd see was Navy guys, on the streets.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah. Would they have to wear their uniforms?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they had to wear their uniforms.
Pretty cute, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of Navy.
Yeah.
Aye.
Uh-huh. So how many days a week would you have worked as a waitress? Do you remember?
6.
6 days a week.
You only got 1 day off
Yeah.
a week, yeah.
And when you did come home for a visit, how would you get here?
By train.
Yes.
Take the train, Digby come as far as North Range. Then there was a mailman that would travel from Dowseville to North Range, pick up the mail.
Right.
So you get a ride.
What kind of a vehicle did he have?
Oh, it's just an ordinary car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have to pay him?
Yeah, I think we paid him a quarter or something for traveling. Yeah.
What was his name? Can you remember?
He was a Dowsett.
Was he?
Jim
Okay.
Dowsett, yeah. Yeah. The old mailman. They're gone.
Yeah. So it's the train.
Yeah, and so's the train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was the church when you were growing up?
It's still there. It's back in the settlement.
Yeah.
Have you ever been back through Dowseville?
No.
You should just drive through.
I
'cause
will.
Here, I'm way back, like
Yeah.
from the settlement. And we had a church. We had a post office, but the post office was in a house.
Okay.
And we had a school, and we had a country store.
Right.
All we have left is the church.
Uh-huh.
Post office gone. The store just closed. My son was running the store for a while, for 8 years, and it just closed
Oh,
here.
dear. Well, I have been back because I was in that store this past fall. We did a little tour before we
Oh, well,
started.
then you were there, yeah.
What a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they closed it in October.
Uh-huh. Because there was a sign in the window they were trying to sell
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah, it is. We miss it, you know, because
I
you
bet.
want a loaf of bread or a quart of milk, we got to go out to Quickway now, out to
Yeah.
Plimpton.
It's a long.
Yeah, or gas. See, we don't have gas.
Right.
They used to sell gas back there, too. Now we have to go to Weymouth or Digby if you have a vehicle and you want to fill up your car. So it's inconvenient.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's happening all over.
Yeah, there's progress and there's on progress, I'd call it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What religion were you growing up?
Roman Catholic.
Okay. Was the whole village pretty much Roman Catholic?
Yes, I would say it would have been, yeah, at the time.
And I grew up Roman Catholic.
Is that right?
And I'm wondering how much of an influence was your religion in your life as you
Oh, quite a bit, yeah. Yeah, especially from our father. He used to tell us Bible stories. And
Oh.
there was no TV or radio, see, so
Uh-huh.
we'd sit around at night, and I think his mother had influenced him a lot, like
Yes.
with the Bible and Bible stories. And as I grew up and went to church and listened to the gospel, I could relate to what my father
Yeah.
used to tell us as little kids, like, you know.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
did you study catechism in school?
All in school and in church, both,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Yeah, we had catechism every morning.
But you
in
didn't
school.
have nuns teaching you?
No.
No.
Just our regular teacher
Right.
would teach us. And then, if I remember right, on Sunday afternoon, we'd go to church and the priest would ask us questions that we had been studying also, like, you know,
Yes.
because we had Mass in the morning and Vespers in the afternoon. So it'd be,
What would Vespers?
well, benediction, I
Right.
think.
Okay.
Yeah. So the priest would come and then we'd have catechism lessons before benediction.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he would have given you your first communion?
First, yeah, first
Yeah.
communion and confirmation.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you remember then about meeting your husband?
He was a fisherman.
Yes.
He was from Digby.
Uh-huh.
And there was 3 brothers, him and 2 other brothers. And I remember just having my eye on him,
Yeah.
seeing him. And we finally met and dated, got married. We lived in Digby for a while, had an
Right.
apartment in Digby.
How old-
And, pardon?
I was going to ask you how old you were when you got married.
I was 17.
Were you?
17, he was 21.
Yes.
Then we moved back down here because it was expensive to live in Digby as the children came.
Yes.
I think I had 4 children when we moved back down here. So I've been down here ever since.
Yes.
Eventually we bought this house.
Right.
That's been 40 years ago now since we bought this home. And then my husband was sick.
Yes.
He was sick most all of not long after we got married, he was ailing.
Oh.
He ended up with MS.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so he was sick. Sick for years.
Yeah.
He fished until he couldn't anymore.
Oh.
And then he was sick at home for 17 years
Oh, dear.
before it. Yeah. Terrible sickness.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
What was your husband's name?
Gordon.
Gordon.
Yeah.
Now I have here Mrs. Jack, I think. Is that?
Yeah, that's his brother.
Oh, okay.
His
Okay.
brother lives in Digby, Jack King.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, his name was Gordon.
So you met Gordon and got married at 17. Where did you
Mhm.
get married?
Here.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Came
What was
home.
your wedding like?
Very simple, really. I was married in a suit. I was married in February.
Yeah.
Married in a suit. And he had a suit. And we just had 2 attendants.
Yes.
Not like today, a whole lineup.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And we had breakfast at my mother's. There was a big storm in the afternoon. It was in February, so we didn't get anywheres. The roads all blocked in and everything. And we just had like a little gathering, the family and friends
Yeah.
at home.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose you didn't have a honeymoon?
No,
No.
no, there was no honeymoon.
No.
My husband was a fisherman and he went fishing.
What kind of fishing did he do?
All kinds. He did scalloping.
Yeah.
He did a lot of that. He did some fish dragging, and he had just bought his boat. He had his own boat when he had to quit work. He had only had his own boat maybe 3 or 4 years, 5 years at the most. And then he had to quit it all. He just couldn't go anymore. Yeah.
What year would this have been now? In the 60s? Or?
You think. He's been gone, it'll be 17 years this January. And he was home 17 years sick.
So 83, 73, 66. He was home since he was 66.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Would have been in the 60s.
So you started your family pretty soon after you got
Yes.
married? Yeah.
I had 6 children, a boy, 4 girls, and a boy.
Aha.
My son is 52 now.
Yes.
Oldest son, my youngest is 30,
Oh,
36, 37.
okay.
Yeah.
Where were your children born?
But the first 3 were born at my mother's,
In her home?
in her home, yeah. And the last 3 were born in Digby Hospital.
Aha. Now, the ones that were born at your mother's home, who attended the birth?
A doctor,
Okay.
a doctor came from Weymouth,
Yes.
and my mother had me convinced that if I went to the hospital, they'd let me suffer, but if I had him at home, I'd be okay.
Uh-huh.
So I listened to her.
Yes.
But for the 4th child, I was living in Digby, and she was born in January.
Yes.
And I decided I wouldn't, my mother was still waiting for me to come home to have this child. So I decided that I wasn't going to say anything, and when the time came, I'd just go to the hospital, and that's what I did. Went to the hospital, then I let my mother know. She had no phone, but I called through to the store. They had a phone to tell them that I had had another baby girl. She was shocked that I had gone to the hospital. So after that, I just went to the hospital for the other 2.
Tradition was broken.
Yeah, tradition was broken.
I'm just, as a 17-year-old married, how much would you have been taught about the birds and the bees?
Nothing, really.
Is that so? Yeah.
I didn't know you had to have labor. That's one thing I did not know.
Is that so?
No, because I had an aunt that was, she'd go with the mothers, like, what do you call them?
Midwife? Or?
Midwife,
Yes.
yeah. So I'd asked her one day what it would be like. Oh, she said, nothing really. She said, you'll just start your period and you'll have the baby. So I said, well, that's not bad, to myself. So when I did go in labor, I thought I had coal in my kidneys or some infection or something.
Oh,
You know?
yes.
Didn't realize.
Yeah.
And it was on a Sunday morning, and it kept getting worse. Well, I had been sort of Saturday and Saturday night, like twinges of pain, but I didn't think nothing of it. But by 10 o'clock Sunday morning, it was getting pretty bad. So I had been up, and I went back to bed. And my youngest sister came at noontime. She said to me, you going to come down and have dinner? I said, no. Don't want no dinner today. I said, I don't feel good. So she went down to her mom. So Mom came up. She said, what's wrong? Oh, I said, I got terrible pains in my back, and it's going down my legs. Oh, she said, you're going to have the baby. No, I said, I'm not having the baby. I got, because there was an outside toilet, so we used to have to go outside, like,
Yes.
you know. So I just thought, well, I must have cold in my kidneys, like they used to call years ago. And she said, no, that's not what you have. I soon found out that you had to have labor to have a child.
My goodness.
Yeah,
Rough way to find out.
I know.
Yeah.
Today the kids at 4 and 5 years old know all about the birds and the bees,
Almost
really.
too much.
I think it's
Yeah.
too much. They're not ready. Their little minds are not ready for all they hear today.
Yeah.
No.
So, when you moved from Digby to Dowseville, where did you live then?
We lived in an empty house. There was an empty house, and we rented it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you would have paid for rent?
Probably $4 or $8 a month, something like that. It was very cheap. Yeah.
My goodness.
Imagine.
No. Did
Yeah.
you have electricity then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, did your husband continue to fish?
Yes, he always fished.
All right, so
Yeah.
how would that work? It's a fair distance from here to the shore.
I think he had a car. After we moved down here, he had bought a car.
Okay.
Because we didn't own one in town
Right.
when we lived in town. But I think he had bought a car. He traveled with his own vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the way back to Digby then?
To Digby,
Okay.
yeah. He fished out of Digby.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, when do you remember like how you realized that he wasn't well?
Oh, after I had my third child, he'd complain about going numb.
Mm-hmm.
His arms and hands going numb. And I was young and he was young, never thought too much of it. You know, sickness didn't bother anybody in those days when you're young. But he kept complaining, and he complained, and he'd go to the doctor and they'd say, well, it's from fishing, it's just muscle or something or other. And then as time went on, his eyesight bothered him. Couldn't see that well. He got glasses, he wore those, that didn't help. And then he got so he'd tell me he'd see double. There are times he'd say, I see two of you, I see two of everything. And he'd go to doctors, but they couldn't tell him anything. Then he got so he had his legs bothering him, he couldn't walk that well. And the doctors would tell him that he worked too hard, he needed a vacation. And he'd laugh, you know, he'd say, I don't need a vacation, there's something wrong with me. So he went for years like that, going to doctors, going fishing. Then he got so bad that I'd noticed that he'd stagger and fall, you know. I know one time he had the baby. He must have been about a year old carrying the kid, and he fell with the kid. Oh, I said, can't carry that child anymore, you're gonna hurt him. But when they did find out what he had, he staggered his way in the doctor's office. Had to eventually hole on the wall, like the walk. Then they put him in the hospital and did tests and found out that he had MS. And I had never heard of it.
No.
At that time, I had never heard about the disease or anything. I remember asking the doctor if it was contagious.
Sure.
And yeah, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And he said, no, it's not contagious, but he said it'll gradually get worse, like there's no cure. And that's what he did. He went downhill fast once he came home.
Is that so?
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible.
Where was he diagnosed?
Digby Hospital.
Digby, yeah.
Yeah, they did a spinal tap.
Oh.
Took fluid out of his spine, and that's how they found out what he had. Yeah.
So how did you manage to raise 6 children without an income?
Well, by the time he took sick, there was some of them out to work. Like there was 3 of them was out to work, the 3 oldest. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I had the younger ones at home, and we had to go on welfare.
Yes. Yeah.
Eventually, like once we had to sell the car, and had to be really down and out before you could get any help. So we lived on welfare.
Yes.
All those years. Wasn't easy.
No.
No.
Must have been very hard on him as well.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah.
So did you tend to him for those 17 years?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the last year of his life, he spent in Digby Hospital.
Right.
Because he got so he couldn't eat.
Ah.
He was fed intravenous, and but I took care of him fully for 12 years. With giving him his bath, shave. He couldn't do anything. Eventually, he was in a wheelchair for quite a few years, but couldn't do anything, like, you know. And then a bed patient. He was a bed patient. But the last year of his life, he spent in Digby Hospital mostly because he couldn't swallow his food anymore. I had made him baby food for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. I had to mush up all his food and everything. And he'd choke so easy. Whew. I was forever choking when I tried to feed him.
Yeah. Cruel illness it is.
Ah,
Yes.
it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's worse than cancer. Because if cancer, you will eventually die, but with this, it lingers on so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was really a sick man.
But you had bought this house before all this happened?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've lived in this house. We had just bought it though.
right. Do you
Because
remember
we've
what
had
you
it.
paid?
Yeah,
What?
1,200.
Oh my goodness.
Can you imagine?
No.
30 acres of land, $1,200.
A big house.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can't imagine it today.
No,
God, you can't build a doorstep today for that.
no.
Really?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Strange.
Yeah.
How things change, huh?
Oh indeed.
Over the years.
Yes.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah. When you were, going back to when you were a little girl, how often would you leave Dowsettville?
Never.
Is that so?
No.
Yeah.
I remember the first time we drove to Plimpton and saw the water out there. I was amazed at all this water, you know. Gosh, it was a big thing.
Aha.
And I must have been 9, 10 years old by that time.
Really?
Really, yeah.
Gee. Yeah.
No, we never went anywhere as children.
Sure.
There might have been 1 or 2 cars in all of the settlement. Like,
Yes.
nobody owned cars or anything.
Yeah.
So you never got to go anywhere.
No.
You stayed home. Went to school, went to church on Sunday, and you were home.
What
Yeah.
what was Christmas like when you were a little girl?
It was very, it was nice because my mother always baked a nice chicken or 2 chickens, and she always did Christmas cooking.
Yeah.
There'd be all kind. I remember her putting all her. She had a table upstairs, and she'd put all her cakes and cookies and things on the table. So it was nice Christmas. No gifts.
None at all?
No, there was no buying gifts like they do today. Oh
Okay.
gosh, no. But we always got our plate of candy and an orange and grapes and nuts for Christmas.
Yeah.
That was our Christmas.
Yeah.
That was our Santa Claus.
Aha.
But we were happy with that because
Yeah.
we didn't know. I think we were happier than what the children are today with everything they get.
Mm-hmm.
They get so much today and they look disappointed.
Yeah.
Really, I find. Where we were, couldn't wait for Christmas morning to come.
Yeah.
And I remember my father would always say that Santa Claus came down the flue, and he'd get up Christmas morning, put a little ashes on the floor around the wood stove, and he'd say, "Look at the mess Santa Claus made when he come down." We believed that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cute.
yeah, it was. When
Where
you
would
think
you-
back.
Where would your parents have gone to get oranges and grapes?
Well, at the store, they'd
Oh.
come in at Christmas time. Don't ask me how they'd get them back there.
Yeah.
But probably at Christmas they'd get a few grapes and oranges in for Christmas, like at the store, the country store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you remember having any playthings at all as a little girl?
We had dolls that my mother would make sometimes. I remember I had received a doll from my godmother one Christmas, and I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
But
Is that a store-bought doll?
yeah,
Oh.
that my godmother had given me, but
Yeah.
our mothers would, or our aunts, and that would make us like rag dolls and things. But mostly what we played with was like the cinnamon that used to come in boxes, cinnamon boxes, and things like that that we'd gather and keep as Mum would use it up, like.
Yes.
And then we'd play store. I can remember putting the ironing board up, and one of us would be the storekeeper, and then the kids would come and buy things, and
Ah.
paper money we'd make.
Yeah.
That was our toys, really, you know.
Yeah.
Very simple things.
Yeah.
And play with buttons. The mother had big cans of buttons, and we'd sit with a piece of twine and lace up the buttons and at night. And another thing we'd do, my mother, I don't know, we'd call it pickings.
Yeah.
The old wool socks, she'd knit all the wool socks, like for my father and that. And then when they get worn out, the leg part would be
Yeah.
good. And we'd cut them in strips like that and
Uh-huh.
pick the yarn. And then my mother would card them over again
Oh.
and spin it. She used to spin her own yarn and make socks over again with this yarn. Like, so we'd sit at night, we'd see who could get the biggest pile, you know. Sit at the table and do that.
I've never heard of that.
No?
No?
Yeah. See, my mother would buy the wool
Mm-hmm.
I remember her doing that as a child. She'd buy the wool and wash it,
Straight from the sheep?
or straight from the sheep.
Yeah.
And she'd wash it, put it out on the grass to dry, and it would bleach it like if it was white wool.
Yes.
And then she had her own, we called it cards.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen them. It was square, like that, about that long, about that wide, and there was a handle, and there was two of them.
Right.
And there was like wire brushes on these cards. So they'd take the wool and we'd call it card it. She'd card it and card it.
Right.
Then she'd make a roll. The roll would be about that long of wool, be right fluffy, about that big.
Yeah.
Then from that roll, she'd spin it on the spinning wheel and make the real yarn and then knit. Oh, they worked hard.
Yes.
And they made their own quilts and quilted their own quilts. And
Yeah. What would they use for stuffing for a quilt?
cotton.
Yeah, yeah.
They could buy the bats of cotton like you do today.
Right.
Or else sometimes they'd use old flannel sheets that was worn out or something, you know, to put in between.
Would they ever save the feathers from a duck or a chicken or anything? Or do you remember them doing that at all?
Not too much.
No.
Not too much. But I remember we had all feathered pillows in the house.
Yes.
So then she could have done it that I can't remember, like.
Do you remember any home remedies that she would use as you were little kids? If you
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the spring of the year, we'd get sulfur molasses.
What was that?
I don't know what the sulfur was. Sulfur looked something like dry mustard. But
Yes, yes.
it wasn't that. It was that color, like, it was
Yellow.
called sulfur.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to clean out our kidneys, I guess. In the spring of the year, we'd get 2-3 teaspoons of that
Yeah.
for a few days. And, oh God, poultice. They used to, if you had a boil or something, they'd make the bread poultice.
Yes.
I know I had pneumonia when I was about maybe 6 or 7.
Really? Wow.
And there was no, like they have today, penicillin and all this, there was none of that.
Yeah.
So the only cure, I guess, at that time was a mustard poultice.
Wow.
I remember having being in bed and a mustard poultice around me.
Yeah. Some people say they burn those mustard poultices.
Yeah, if you leave them on too long.
Yeah. But the doctor wouldn't have come to see you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the doctor, I don't know how often he'd come because I don't remember anything there for a few days.
That's so.
Yeah, because my temperature, I guess, was so high.
Wow.
And I remember waking up once and the doctor was by my bed.
Mm.
But that's when I was coming out of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
There wasn't too much then if you were sick.
No.
And we caught the measles and the mumps and chicken pox and all those
Yeah.
things. I was trying to think of some other remedies, but I can't right now.
There were no vaccinations, I suppose, in those days
Got vaccinated in school, yeah.
against polio.
No.
No. No.
There was no polio. It might have been polio, but I don't think
I think
then.
you're right. I think it was later than that.
Yeah, got vaccinated. It must have been scarlet fever.
Oh, really?
I think we were vaccinated against.
Yeah.
But the doctor came right to our school and did it.
Aha.
Yeah. Yeah, did the whole class at one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you ever went to Digby
Not really.
or Weymouth? No.
No, I don't. I can't visualize that.
Where would you go if you wanted to see a movie?
Digby.
Okay.
But I think there was a theater in Weymouth also.
Right.
But we never went until we went out to work.
Yes.
As far as that went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old was your mother when she died?
She was 81.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my father was 84.
Right.
Yeah.
When you were a young couple, you and your husband, well, of course, you couldn't foresee that he was going to be ill, but how did you plan for your retirement at that time?
Well, there wasn't too much to plan with being a fisherman
Yes,
because there was no pension plans or anything
yeah,
for fishermen. There wasn't even unemployment for fishermen at that time when we were first married.
yeah.
So I guess you must just try to save for your retirement
Yeah.
over your life. Yeah, because I remember when we were first married in the wintertime, that's mostly why we had moved out of Digby, because we were paying $30 a month in rent, which was a lot then.
Yeah,
And there was no unemployment in the winter,
right,
so you had to try and save enough during the summer to cover all these expenses in the wintertime, like your rent and your food and everything. So that's why we decided we'd move down here and we wouldn't have that rent to pay. It would help.
right.
But that would have been our only way. It would have been saving it on your own for your retirement. Yeah.
So did your husband ever fish lobster?
No,
No, okay.
never went lobster fishing.
No.
Mostly scalloping
Uh-huh.
that he did, because his father owned the boat and he always would fish with his father.
I see, okay.
Yeah, and it was mostly scalloping and fish dragging.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone else gonna get that, or you need to get it, or?
You can answer it. Tell him I'm busy, or
Do you want me
don't.
to?
Yeah,
Okay,
you can
sure,
if you want
right
to.
here.
You can ask who it is.
Sure. Hello? You're looking for Lena, I suppose. I'm interviewing her right now, and I've got a microphone hooked up to her. Could she call you back in about a half hour or so? Okay. Alrighty. Can I tell her to call? Sure. Okay. Thank you very much. She got.
Janice?
She didn't say, she said she usually calls you every day at this time. She
Yeah.
forgot about the interviews.
It's Janice.
Yeah, she said she'll call back in a bit.
Yeah, okay.
And we were talking about your husband working, fishing with his father.
Mm-hmm.
In those days when they went scalloping, how long would they go out for at a time?
Oh, they'd just go out in the Bay of Fundy, just outside Digby Gut, like
Yes.
I'd call it. And they were in usually every night.
Okay.
Sometimes it'd be late, like, well, it's according to the weather. If the
Yeah.
weather was good, they'd stay out later, but they'd be in every night.
How many of them on the boat?
There'd have been the father, probably 2 or 3 other,
Okay.
sometimes 4.
Right.
There would have been 4 of them with the captain, like, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how dangerous was that work?
Oh, it's a lot more dangerous than what it is now.
Yeah.
Because all they had to work with was a compass. There was no radar or sonar or anything like that in those days. So they only had a compass to go by. And if the weather got bad, I know my father-in-law lost one boat because of the compass. They had put a iron too close to the compass, and it
Yeah.
wasn't reading right.
Yeah.
And he went ashore down around Gulliver's Cove there somewhere, lost the boat, but there was no lives lost.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh.
I remember that. I think that was right. We were just married then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huh. And when your husband acquired his boat, what kind of a boat was that he got?
Well, the first boat he had was just a smaller boat, the little Allen G, and he fished with that. And he only had that boat about a year, then he went into a bigger boat.
Right.
He got a boat. I know he went to Murray Harbor, Prince Edward Island, for the boat. He bought it from there,
Wow.
and it was named the Murray Harbor, the
Yes.
second.
Yes.
And that was a scholar boat that he had.
Oh.
It was a nice boat,
Yeah.
nice big boat, and but he only fished in it, I think, at 3 years at the most, and
Right.
then he was sick, and
Yeah.
he had to give it all up. And our oldest son, was fishing with him at the time, but he was only 18, I think, 17, 18. And he was really too young to take over the boat, like,
Yeah.
you know. Because at that time, if you could run a boat, you didn't need captain's papers, you know, to go
Oh.
fishing. Today, you need captain's papers. You have to go study.
Yeah.
But if he had been a little older and could have run the boat, he could have taken the boat over, but he was too young for
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Too bad, eh?
Yeah.
2 more years.
Yeah.
So what are your children's names? Starting from the oldest.
Larry
Yeah.
and Judy and Sharon and Gail and Janice and David.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
where did they live?
They all live around here. Larry lives back here, and Janice lives in Dowsville. And Judy lives in Belleville Cove.
Right.
Judy married Frenchie, Geese,
Oh, yeah.
Geese Frenchies.
Yeah.
And Sharon is the only one that's away, and she lives in Cape Breton.
Okay.
And David lives in Weymouth Mills. I think that's taken care of
That's
all of them,
nice. Yeah.
So they're all handy.
Lovely.
All but Sharon, she lives in Ingonish Beach. Her husband works at the Celtic Lodge. He's
Okay.
chef there at the Celtic
Okay,
Lodge. Yeah.
And how many grandchildren do you have?
Oh, I have 13
Yeah.
grandchildren, and I have 2 great-grandchildren, 2 boys.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to live to have great grandchildren.
No, I don't think.
Yeah.
I said to my oldest son, I wish, but I said, I won't see that.
Oh, I think you will.
Yeah.
Healthy looking.
Yeah, it's nice to have a big family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's nice that they're all close
Yeah.
by. Do you have any memories at all about the poor farm from when you were growing up?
Slightly, yes.
Yeah.
Not too much. I
No.
remember them talking about the poor farm, and I remember seeing it.
Yes.
But to tell you anything about it, I wouldn't
No.
be able to.
No families that you knew went?
No.
No, okay. Already told me what Doseville looked like. You had a post office and a school and a church. What did most people here do for a living? Same as your father did, or?
Yeah, I think the men mostly. They were all woodsmen,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I can see. Besides the storekeeper, we had a storekeeper and a mailman.
Right.
But outside of that, I think they all worked in the woods.
Yeah.
And they'd go sometime, in the wintertime, sometimes they'd be gone for a month or so. Like they'd stay right in camps
Right.
and work in the woods, yeah.
How does the population now compare to when you were a child growing up here?
I don't know if there'd be more people here now,
No?
because back then there was more children.
Yes.
Like where today there's probably more houses but less children, so it would probably just about even itself out,
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's more houses. There's been more new homes built in that.
Yeah.
But
What were some of the family names that you remember when you were growing up here, your friends'
they
families?
were all French. There was Robichaud's, Amiros, Thibodeau's, Thibault's.
Mhm.
That was about it. Robichaud's, Amiro, Thibodeau's. Yeah.
Do you know when this community was first settled?
I think it was, but I wouldn't say for sure, in the 1700s.
Right.
And when David Dowsett came here, that was after, must have been after the expulsion of the Acadians,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, if I remember right, he moved up here from Eelbrook.
Yes. Okay.
I think when they were expelled, I think he was one of them that escaped.
Mm-hmm.
And he moved up here, and he built a home. That's why they call it, we have a river back here, they call it the Mistake River.
Mistake River?
Mistake River,
Yeah.
or the Mistake Brook.
Right.
And when he came back here, he thought that he was building in the right place, but he went way back.
Yeah.
So this river, for some reason, they call it the Mistake River, because he had went by this one and went to the Branch River that they call way back,
Yeah.
and he built in back of there, like, you know.
Right.
But he should have built by this river. You might remember seeing the bridge when you go back to Dowsville. There's a
Okay.
bridge there in the river. So he went by that one and went to the second one, and he built.
Uh-huh.
So really, I'm a descendant from this. What would he be? It was my mother. There's me and my mother and my grandmother and her mother. And then David Dowsett, I think. Must be more than 5 generations ago.
Well, 200 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a few more than 5, but
Yeah.
still, yeah. Huh?
But that's where we're descendants from this David Dowsett. And he had married an Indian lady.
Oh.
So there's a little bit of Indian there in us also, like,
Good.
yeah.
Now, I meant to ask you that. Would you have, when did you first encounter someone of a different race than yourselves, either black or Indian?
Well, the blacks, I know they, Weymouth Falls down here, which is not too far from here.
Right.
They used to come up here in the fall of the year begging for vegetables.
Oh, yeah.
That's my first encounter with the black people.
Right.
But there was none living back, you know, in our settlement or
No.
going to our school or anything. Yeah, I remember that. They'd come with a horse and a cart.
Right.
And different ones would give them potatoes or carrots, whatever they had,
Right.
like, yeah.
And how about Micmacs? Would you ever have seen them?
No,
No? No.
no. There were some in Bear. Well, I'm saying no. But they used to sell baskets.
Yeah.
Once a year, would be the ladies
Yes.
would come with the great big bales of baskets on their backs and
Yes.
selling baskets. And I remember at one time when I was very, very young, way up at the other end of the settlement, they'd come and pitch a tent in the summertime.
Right.
Now, I don't know how many of them, I don't know if it was husband and wife but they'd pitch this tent and they'd go in the woods and look for this certain wood that they made their baskets with.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know how long they stayed there, but it would be in the summer.
Right.
But that's all I remember because I was just a little kid, like, you know.
Right.
But I remember that they'd do that.
Even the older people on the islands remember the Indians from Bear River coming all the way down there with their baskets too.
Really,
Yeah.
to sell their baskets.
Yeah, it's a long way.
Yeah, and they'd walk too, you
Yeah.
know, they had to walk. And they'd sell those baskets like 10 cents and a quarter.
Unbelievable.
God.
Yeah. You think now what
Yeah.
people pay.
Yeah.
In the fall, would your mom get you to go out berrying and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We picked wild strawberries wherever there was some handy that we could
Yeah.
walk and get them. And blueberries, we picked blueberries for our own use, and we picked them to sell also, get 5 cents a quart.
Who would you sell them to?
Well, there was a fellow back in Dowsettville, Cliff Tebow, he used to buy them.
Right.
And if I remember right, he sold them down Digby Neck.
Yeah.
Could have possibly be, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he sold them, and we'd pick them in his pasture. He had a great big pasture with
Okay.
all kinds of blueberries, and we'd go pick them, and we'd get 5 cents a quart for picking them.
Yeah.
And he'd fill the quart
Yes.
right round, and so it was like a quart and a quarter or a
Yeah.
quart and a half. Yeah, and we thought that was great.
Yeah.
My gosh, we were making a nickel.
Uh-huh.
Probably get 25 cents in a whole day for picking berries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones you picked for your own use, what would your mother do with those?
Oh, she'd make blueberry pies or
Yes.
fungies.
What's
yeah.
a fungi?
The fungi, you stew the blueberries, and then you make like a dumpling,
Okay.
and you drop the dumpling, and
Oh.
you can either cook it on top of the stove or bake it in the oven.
Aha.
As a cobbler, you must have heard tell of
Yes.
cobblers, yeah.
Or blueberry grunt, I think, is another name.
Or maybe that
Yeah.
would be,
Yeah.
but we call it fungi, blueberry fungi.
But she wouldn't make jam out of this fruit.
Not too much,
No.
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 How superstitious were people when you were growing up?
Oh, there were some of them I think would have been quite superstitious,
Yeah.
like they believed in different things. The black cat crossing your path, and oh God, I don't know,
Yeah.
I can't remember them all now. And I think I probably was too, growing up. But I am not today, I don't believe in all that.
No.
Baloney, but as a kid, if you hear it, you believe in it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gonna switch this up. No, I've got a few more minutes here. When someone died in the community, what happened to the body?
It was brought at the home.
into your own home.
Wherever they lived, yeah. It was
Yeah.
brought into the home for 3 days.
Aha,
And they'd have wakes at night, and
right.
then it would be taken to the church and buried.
What happened at a wake?
There was a wake to stay up all night, apparently.
Yeah.
The neighbors and the friends would come and they'd stay up all night, and they'd say the rosary at midnight and have a lunch,
Okay.
and some of them, they wouldn't leave the body alone, like, you know. I don't know
Yeah.
if they thought it was going to run away. but they'd stay up all night, and there was always someone at the house with the families, like,
Right.
yeah.
Was there an undertaker in the community?
There was an undertaker, but he'd only, as far as I know, he'd only come and take the body to the church to be
Okay.
buried.
Right.
Yeah. Because I think way back when I was a kid, there was a man here in Dowseville that used to take care of the body and get it ready for. He used to make his own caskets also at that time.
Yeah.
They'd make the casket and line it and
Uh-huh.
prepare the bodies for burial.
Right. What was his name? Do you remember it all?
Burnham Tebow.
Another people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The undertaker in Freeport used to get his caskets from Yarmouth.
From Yarmouth.
Yeah. He didn't make his own.
Oh, yeah.
Just wondering, well, you've made some observations about comparing life today to days gone by. Yeah. Is that, maybe we have more today, but of course.
Well, I think with the children today have so much more than what we had. But I can't see them being happier than what we were. Like I find the children today, they get a ride to school, they get a ride home, they come in, they watch TV, or else they play Nintendos. They're not getting any exercise.
No.
Like when we were children, we were outdoors playing tag and hide and go seek and playing ball. There was a hill, we'd be rolling down the hill, and
Yes.
you know, we were very active as children, but I find the children today, it's not healthy because they're not active enough.
No.
And they don't seem to be happy like we were. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I find the more they have today and the more they look for more.
Yeah.
They're never happy with what they have.
We didn't get a television till I was 11, and I'm glad. of that.
11, yeah.
You know, we just, you're
Well,
right, we were outdoors so much more.
Yeah. Well, without TV and Nintendo games, I think the kids would be more active
Sure.
because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
But they might skate a little bit in the winter time or something, but they're not very active.
No.
I know I have a grandson that lives here with me. He's 16,
Yeah.
and his mother lives here with me, but she works.
Right.
But he doesn't do anything. He
Yeah.
comes home from school, walks to the house, and he's either watching TV or Nintendo. I tell him something, go for a walk. Oh, that kills him, yeah. Why do that?
Well, thank you, Lena. Unless I've forgotten to ask you, do you have any stories that you'd like to tell me that I haven't got to ask you?
No, I think I've covered them all
Yeah.
pretty well.
Well, it's a great interview. Really.
Well, thank you.
No, real good.
I hope I've been of some help to
you
you.
certainly have.
Yeah.
Yeah, a real picture of what things were like.
Yeah.
Well, unhook you there.
Okay.
Do you have, for some other time, any old photos